Despite Microsoft consoles not being as well known for Japanese RPGs as Nintendo and PlayStation, the Xbox 360 had a great handful of them. Some I even consider among the best JRPGs of the 7th generation of video game consoles. How's it going everyone, Tazen here, and in this video I'll be personally recommending 5 great RPGs I believe are worth trying that were originally released on the Xbox 360. 4 of these RPGs are Japanese RPGs and 1 is a Korean RPG. So going in order of Japanese release date, the first JRPG from the Xbox 360 that I recommend is worth trying is Blue Dragon. Developed by Mistwalker and Artoon and published by Microsoft Game Studios, Blue Dragon was released in Japan on December 7th, 2006 and in Europe, North America and Australia on August 24th, 28th and 30th, 2007 respectively. The first game in this series, this Japanese RPG was the first title to be developed by Mistwalker and its founder, Hironobu Sakaguchi, who was one of the lead creators of the Final Fantasy games at Squaresoft and Square Enix, before leaving and creating his own studio. He served as the writer of the game's story, which was directed by Takuya Matsumoto, who worked on the Digital Devil Saga games, Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne, and The Last Story to name a few. The creator of Dragon Ball, Akira Toriyama, served as the artist for the game, and Nobuo Uematsu, the most well-known Final Fantasy composer and good friend of Sakaguchi, served as the composer, creating somewhat of a dream team at the head of the game. The story takes place in a large world that has purple clouds which appear every 10 years, bringing about a mysterious beast and technology that massacre people and destroy villages. Playing as the young boy Shu, whose parents were killed by the beast, he and his 4 friends set about uncovering these mysteries, travelling throughout the world to defeat the Grand Kingdom's evil ruler. With visible enemies in the field, the gameplay is turn-based. During gameplay, you fight with a magical shadow that appears like a specific animal, Shu's shadow being the title Blue Dragon. Shadows can have their skills customised by changing their classes, which increase in rank and abilities from experience points gained in battle, and you can explore towns, dungeons, and travel between localities in an overworld. The game ended up going on to meet its sales goals of about 200,000 copies only 4 months after its Western release. It has since been re-released as a backwards compatible game on the Xbox One, being available either as a digital purchase or as a free download by inserting and using Disc 1 from a physical copy of the game. The second JRPG I recommend is worth trying that was originally released on the Xbox 360 is Lost Odyssey. Developed by Mistwalker and Feel Plus, and published by Microsoft Game Studios, Lost Odyssey was released in Japan on December 6, 2007, and in Australia, North America and Europe on February 8th, 12th and 29th, 2008 respectively. The only game in the series, this Japanese RPG was the second title to be developed by Mistwalker and Hironobu Sakaguchi, who served as the writer of the game's story following Blue Dragon. One of Japan's best-selling authors, Kiyoshi Shigematsu, served as the writer for the well-known dream sequences, making this Shigematsu's first time working on a video game. The game was directed by Daisuke Fukugawa, who had previously worked on games like The Legend of Mana, Final Fantasy Tactics, and several Yakuza games. The game was produced by Takahiro Kaminagayoshi, who was the event director for The Legend of Dragoon, and Nobuo Uematsu returned with Sakaguchi as the composer for this game. The story takes place in a large and diverse world, however, within the past several decades, there has been a massive increase in magical energy across the planet, leading to many strange phenomenons and wildlife mutations throughout it. During this time though, there has also been a rapid growth in magical harnessing technology, dubbing the recent era the Magical Industrial Revolution. The story itself revolves around the main protagonist Kai. He is an immortal human and mercenary who has lived for 1,000 years, yet is unable to age or be mortally wounded. Despite living for so long though, he can only remember his life up until 30 years ago. On his assigned travels to find out why people working on a unique magical harnessing machine have not made recent contact with their city-state, one by one he crosses paths with several other immortals who also cannot remember anything from more than 30 years ago. As a result, they all set forth together, joined by several mortal companions, to uncover the truth behind all these magical anomalies and rediscover their past. With a level up system and random encounters, the gameplay is traditionally turn-based, but with an active timed element by intersecting 2 rings together during an attack to increase its effects. This is somewhat similar to something like The Legend of Dragoon. Mortals learn abilities through leveling up, whereas Immortals learn abilities from both items and links with each mortal's abilities. The world is vast and features an overworld map to traverse the ocean and air within various vehicles that become available over the game. The earlier mentioned dream sequences are written flashbacks, mostly of Kaim's lost memories over his 1,000 years of living. They are written stories presented like visual novels, and they're unlocked by certain encounters with NPCs and through certain events throughout the game that trigger Kaim's lost memories. Now to this day, the dream sequences personally stand as one of the most highly evocative forms of storytelling for me, and very impactful stories. I mean, I was brought to tears on almost all of them, so even just for those dream sequences alone, I highly recommend this game. Lost Odyssey went on to sell over 40,000 copies on its first day of sale in Japan, and hit about 100,000 copies in January in approximately 2 months. And in North America, it sold over 200,000 copies in its first month. The game has since been re-released as a backwards compatible title on the Xbox One, much like Blue Dragon, being available either as a digital purchase or as a free download by inserting and using Disc 1 from a physical copy of the game. The third JRPG I recommend is worth trying that was originally released on the Xbox 360 is Infinite Undiscovery. Developed by Tri-Ace and published by Square Enix, Infinite Undiscovery was released in Japan on the 11th of September 2008 and slightly early in North America, Australia and Europe on September 2nd, 4th and 5th respectively. The only game in the series, this Japanese RPG was directed and designed by Hiroshi Ogawa, who was the planning director and co-writer of Star Ocean 3 till the end of time. The game was produced by Hajime Kojima, who also helped produce Valkyrie Profile 2, Radiata Stories, Star Ocean 3, 4 and 5, and Xenoblade Chronicles X to name a few. The game's lead programmer was Yoshiharu Gotanda, who is the president of Tri-Ace, and the game's composer was Motoi Sakuraba, who has composed many great JRPGs, some of which include the Star Ocean games, the Tales of games, and even the Baten Kaitos games to name a few. The story is set in a world where the moon was chained to the planet and its regions by a dread knight. The chains affect the planet and cause life to die around the regions where they are bound to it. When a liberator named Sigmund and his force start trying to unchain the world, the young main protagonist named Capel gets caught up in this journey when he's mistakenly identified as Sigmund in looks and is imprisoned by the Dread Knight. After being freed by one of Sigmund's allies, his journey to unchain the planet begins. With real-time combat, this action RPG includes situational battles and real-time decisions which can affect the world and the story's outcome, leading to new experiences and discoveries each playthrough. Players control Capel in battle, with your party members acting according to the tactics you assign them. The game features vast exploration in fields, towns and villages, and includes save points to maintain your progress. After its first month of release on the Xbox 360, the game sold approximately 100,000 copies and had over 120,000 copies shipped in Japan, over 200,000 copies shipped in North America, and over 90,000 copies shipped in Europe. Averaging the review scores from 13 different publications, the game received an average rating of 70%. To date, this game is currently still only playable on the Xbox 360. And the fourth JRPG I recommend is worth trying that was originally released on the Xbox 360 is The Last Remnant. Developed and published by Square Enix, The Last Remnant was released worldwide on November 20th, 2008. The only game in the series, this Japanese RPG was directed by Hiroshi Takai, who was an assistant director on Final Fantasy XIV A Realm Reborn and worked on the battle graphics of Final Fantasy V. The game was also produced by Nobuyuki Ueda, who is a production assistant on Final Fantasy IX and part of the management staff on Final Fantasy VIII. The game is set in a world full of different intelligent humanoid races, filled with cities and states made of different cultures. From time to time, wars are waged over ancient and powerful magical artifacts known as remnants, which are bound to and able to be used by a certain person. Most often, the leader of a city is bound to a remnant, but remnants that are not bound to an individual for long enough can become unstable and cause significant environmental effects. The story revolves around the main protagonist named Rush, who is searching for his sister after she is kidnapped by an unknown group on the island that they reside on. With the aid of a young ruler and his allies, Rush tries to track down his sister, learning about why she was kidnapped and clashing with a mysterious conqueror who is invading cities and stealing remnants across the world. With visible enemies in the field, the gameplay is turn-based when you make physical contact with them. During gameplay, you fight by giving commands to unions, which are groups made up of your player characters and other hireable allies called units. Each enemy you encounter on the field is often made up of a union of 1 to 5 units in battle, and each union has their own shared stats like HP and AP. In the game, you can explore towns, dungeons, and travel between localities in the field. The game also includes facial motion capture for the English voice actors, making the characters' lip movements be in sync with the English dialogue. The game went on to receive an enhanced port on Windows PC in 2008, which included graphical enhancements and improvements, all Xbox 360 DLC, a speed up mode, and a New Game Plus mode. It was then later remastered and re-released digitally on the PlayStation 4 and Nintendo Switch, which upgrades its rendering from Unreal Engine 3 to Unreal Engine 4, drastically improves all the graphical and performance issues from the original game, features high quality remastered assets, in addition to several new quality of life features. In total, the game has gone on to sell over 1 million copies combined across all versions and platforms. And the 5th RPG I recommend worth trying, which was originally released on the Xbox 360, is the Korean RPG known as Magna Carta II. Developed by Softmax, published by Namco in Japan, Europe and Australia, and published by Namco Bandai Games in North America, Magna Carta II was released in Japan on August 6, 2009, and in North America and Europe on October 13th and 16th, 2009 respectively. The third game in the series, this Korean RPG was developed over 4 years on Unreal Engine 3 and was directed by Yong-Kyu Choi, the director of the previous 2 Magna Carta games, and characters were illustrated by Hyung-Tae Kim, who worked on Tales of Hearts R and is also currently working on the Korean RPG inspired by Nier Automata called Project Eve. With a brand new cast of characters, the story revolves around the main protagonist named Juto, who resides peacefully on an island with no recollection of his past. After an accident uncovers a secret power within him, he's caught up in fighting alongside a princess in a war against a prime minister who forcefully claimed the throne of her family's kingdom by overthrowing her royal family and assassinating her mother, the queen. Throughout his adventure, Juto learns about his true identity and the secret power that resides within him. Controlling a party of 3, the gameplay is both turn-based and real-time, with a movement mode that allows exploration and interaction with the environment, and a combat mode that places your characters in a battle stance to fight enemies, but with reduced movement speed. You can use either normal attacks or attacks that restore or deplete the game's equivalent of magical energy. And attacks can fill up an overdrive that allows you to deal more damage once full, at the cost of being unable to move once you've depleted it. There are, however, ways to overcome this by chaining this mode with other party members, making for quite a cool aspect in the battle system. Across many official publications, the game has received an average rating of 70%, and to this day is only available on the Xbox 360. So there we have 5 RPGs that I recommend are worth trying that were originally released on the Xbox 360. Let me know if you're interested in any of these, or maybe if you've even played some. I'm sure depending on the type of games that you enjoy, you may have different receptions to these and may even get some enjoyment out of giving these a try. One honourable mention is Tales of Vesperia, which was originally exclusive on the Xbox 360 in the West. However, at the beginning of 2019, the PlayStation 3 Japanese version received a remaster worldwide, giving us finally access to all the exclusive content on the PlayStation 3 version. But until then, that was a game that many of us in the West experienced exclusively on the Xbox 360 without any form of fan translations. So anyways, I'll leave it at that. Let me know your thoughts below. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed. And until next video, stay spot on.